Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Great to be here with you guys today. It's going to be a fun show. My name's Seth Krussman, joined here once again with Ben Brayshaw, Dan Mickelin. How are you guys today?
Seth, I'm doing well. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks.
We have a heck of a show lined up here for you today, pouring into your financial foundation part 1. And, hey, if you're new to Money on Tap, you know, who are these guys? Well, we're financial planners. That's what we do in our day jobs. You know, this is what we get to do for fun kind of in the middle of our week and break it up a little bit and talk about what's important to us as financial planners. We call it three-dimensional investing. It's what we're workshopping on a daily basis. And so we're really excited to be able to bring some concepts to life here for you. Stuff that we're having the conversations around. And guess what? The landscape changes. Some of these things that we're going to talk about today, they have there is going to be some timelessness to it. And other stuff that we're going to be talking about is very important right here, right now, for you in the current climate of financial planning.
Yeah, I think when everyone walks through the door or we get a phone call, there's just an underlying deep concern. And they're never exactly the same. They have similar, you know, kind of the mood or the spirit of it can tend to be similar, but you know, everybody has their own underlying concern that's, you know, developed by 15 things that have happened over the last, you know, 5 months, and then, you know, 5 million things that have happened over the last, you know, anywhere from, you know, 25 to 55 or 85 years. So, you know, I think those are the things that, you know, drive everyone's background. And I think when you're talking about, you know, pouring your financial foundation, it has started long before someone meets us, you know, and then trying to, you know, trim that up and make that, you know, really mean something important. I think that's what the next two shows are going to really be all about. And I'm excited to kind of go through that journey with you guys and our listeners today.
Yeah, I think it's something that's pretty common that people come to us with kind of, you know, a basket of assets, right? They have different investments, you know, whether it's securities, investment accounts, it's real estate, it's, you know, all the things that you accumulate over life. And, you know, they have varying perspectives of, is this enough or is this too little? You know, but one of the things that we do for you and a show like this can help you kind of self-check yourself is, you know, put it all together in some kind of a structure with intention, right? We can design it, you know, reallocate it, whatever the situation may be, to make sure that you walk out of here having a plan and a direction and a timeline to understand, you know, what steps come next and, you know, hopefully point you towards the right outcome that you're looking for.
Well done. With that, we are going to head off into the sunrise of Money in the News.
And today from Fox Business, from Kristen Altis, we have an article there, Saving for Retirement in America Makes Dramatic Shift, New Report Reveals. And this one I found interesting because, you know, what it really highlighted and pointed to is younger people, you know, through their own experiences, whether it's, you know, witnessing a couple really large-scale financial downturns or whatever the case may be, COVID, who knows, but they have really committed themselves to saving for retirement in a way that, you know, generations before hadn't. So I just found that to be, you know, very interesting. Because, you know, we, you know, on the show we kind of give millennials a hard time, and you know, there's, you know, maybe a biased expectation that younger people are doing different things with their money that aren't necessarily, you know, in the priority order that we would place it as planners. But what this article shows us is that, in fact, you know, those younger generations do have an eye towards retirement, and they are saving at higher rates than people before.
Yeah, I mean, even talking to nieces, nephews, even my daughter, there's just that natural shift of somebody who's looking at retirement for the first time in a totally different lens. I mean, it's as you get older, you start maturing, you start realizing like life's not that long. Like I really need to take this stuff more seriously. I've noticed it with one of my nephews, he's really engaged in talking to me more and more about investing and so forth. And he's graduated college, he's got a job, he's got a good job, he's just really starting to engage in that, and the conversations are more and more adept at understanding, like stocks and bonds and different PE ratios and all the different pieces, fundamental analytics that we look at, and just kind of working through that. And I'm actually just impressed that he's really starting to engage at that at a level that's I would probably use the word competent and has some intelligence behind what he's really looking at and trying to understand and grow in that space. Like he's challenging himself, and I like that about that.
I don't know. The economist brain in me wants to try to poke a couple holes in this whole thing. For one, where they're coming from and saying that this is what is this due to? They're stating it's due to automatic 401k enrollments. I'd love to jump on board with that and say, yeah, I could see that happen. And that's a part of the 401k plans these days that are very common, where you say you're at the new job and it's time for your 401k enrollment. Well, they sign you up and it's an automated thing, and it's up to you to designate which funds you want to go to. But if you don't, then they'll kind of default into these different buckets. And then they'll also include some automatic escalators on those, like 0.5% or 1% a year. So those things running in the background, it's kind of like your subscriptions that you're kind of trying to clean out on a monthly basis, right? This is a good one, though. I would say this is a good subscription to be a part of. But then it goes on to say that it's due to that as well as the target date funds. And immediately, I just have this knee-jerk reaction to that. I'm like, boo, target. I'm not a fan of the target date fund, really. There's shows that we've done on the target date funds if we want to go back to that. But I really love to take a look at some larger numbers here and try to understand, is it generational? Is it more linked to technology and the 401k escalations? Or is there some historical data that has something to do more in line with the economy? And the numbers that we're looking at are from 2021. A very different time and place in 2021 as far as what people were doing with their finances at that time than what they're doing right now in 2023. So all those things to say, interesting article. Yes, on some of it, maybe not on some of the rest.
Agreed.
And up next from CNN, from Alicia Wallace, job openings shrank more than expected in February, and a positive sign for the Fed. And we can't often say that part, right? Positive sign for the Fed, but here we go. It looks like, at least according to this article and its premise, that some of the rate hiking is finally started to move one of the metrics that the Fed is looking at to potentially ease or just stop with the increases going forward. And what this basically says is that the number of expected job openings has shrunk. It dropped from 9.93 million in February downward from the estimate of 10.56 million expected for January. So the job market, while it remains hot, is drying up a little bit. And we've seen a couple major retailers begin to lay off some of the workforce. I know that's been in the news lately with Amazon and Facebook or Meta. So some of this increased cost of money and kind of tightening of our fiscal policies is finally taking hold in the labor market.
This is what the Fed wants to see. So, I mean, hopefully this is what's causing a little bit of the rally. I don't think I'm a big optimist on this rally. I think the Fed's going to continue raising rates. I know they keep saying it's not going to be that much more, but I think we probably got another quarter or half a point coming. I really do.
Oh, I can't imagine that they're totally done at this point.
No. And they've said they're going to raise it again. They've already communicated that, but I think we've got a little more raising than they are being honest about. I guess that's a fair word at this point. So, from that standpoint, I think when you look at the jobs, this is what they want to see. I think at the end of the day, no one really knows how to interpret the Fed. That's why they keep asking these same questions and convoluted questions, trying to dig out any sort of perspective that they have on this. But this is one of the items.
Yeah, looking at basically the Fed trying to see some indicators that say the economy is contracting, right? And the amount of jobs available being one of those that they could be looking at. We've talked about several of these in the past. Our spending, especially through that holiday season, where were we at as far as the consumer spending? Those are, things that they're looking at as well. There's a ton of things out there, and I guess, hey, if you got one of these things starting to move, then great. That's all stuff that we're hoping to start to see, so we can. I'd like to see us eventually start the cycle back over, because that's the fun part, right? When we're in an expanding economy and things are moving along. But there you go.
Next up, an article I think I'm really actually interested in sharing. We're probably going to make a show out of this. But workers must plan on Social Security shortfall when retirement planning advisors say. This is by Kerry Hannon. And this is we've talked about Social Security so much, and it's probably one of the most common requested topics when people walk through the door. They want to talk about Social Security. And we had a conversation, literally what day? Yesterday or the day before? I don't know. Some client was in the office, and we were chatting about it. Actually, not a client yet, but going to become one. And we were chatting about Social Security, and they were asking how we're looking at planning, and they're concerned about Social Security. And I said, you're fairly young. And I said, honestly, I really can't foreshadow us using your full Social Security benefit as a planning initiative. I think that would be shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit and really not preparing and doing the planning we need to do. It's very clear that the Social Security administration has said they're going to run out of money in 2034. That recently changed to 2032, I think it was, right, Dan?
2033 at least.
Yeah, at least 3. And and every time we write a new paycheck to some other foreign government, we end up reducing that time period further. And that's a real problem. And the statement by the Social Security Administration is that you're basically going to get about 70% of your benefit. And, plan on that. We've actually aggressively said to people that, plan on 50%. And if you get 70, consider it gravy. That's your travel money, go on a vacation, really engage that way. And I think as you're looking at Social Security, it becomes more and more complicated. And as you're younger and considering that. And this article does a really good job of explaining the difference between Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers, and the amount of Social Security that each one of these groups are expecting. And basically the baby boomers are, it's about 40% of their income in their expectation, which is astronomically high compared to, the Gen Z generation, which is about 16%, which is less than half of the expectation of your full retirement. I think that's pretty incredible, honestly.
Yeah, this is, we're in kind of a unique situation here as planners, for the professionals out there that, address these issues for people. Forever you've been, we've talked about the 3-legged stool, right? The foundational income expectations in retirement, and the legs were, Social Security, private pensions, and 401k, right? So you have these different retirement tools that were out there that it's the combination of that lead to a baseline of retirement income that you can plan around and expect to have available. But what's going on here is, clearly someone's taking a saw to one of those legs, and the stool's about to get a little bit more wobbly for sure.
Yeah, no, I think when we start really breaking down financial planning, people need to really understand that a lot of the planning that's going on out there, and I hate to throw a bunch of planners under the bus, but most of them are, hey, what's your Social Security expectation? Boom, that's what you're getting. And it's considered a lifetime pension. And I can understand and appreciate that that's where we've been, but that's not where we're going. And I think if you're doing planning and that's part of your plan and you have no backup, you need to meet with somebody immediately and figure out how you're going to get one. Because in 10 years or less, we're going to be dealing with lots of people looking for backups, and now's the time to do that planning.
I think exactly what you're saying here in other parts of the article gets highlighted in that as well. Trying to make up for that shortfall is what a few of these the planners in this article are talking about. And one of the first ones that they kind of fall back on is to amp up your returns and basically turn up the risk or add more equities to your portfolio, which, potentially could work out, but as well, it may not ultimately have the payoff necessary to backfill the need that you have in there, especially when you're talking about creating a pension-like kind of an income. Or were a couple of the other ones that they that they kind of highlighted here as well. Oh, the hold off on claiming their Social Security to try to, get a larger number at age 70. Some of these techniques or tactics. And I think, traditionally that might be the mindset that people would fall back into. But I think there's so much more to the question here that needs to be answered. And a lot more resources that need to be brought to the table and available for the retirees to be able to try to make a decision that's ultimately going to give that confidence that they want to have in retirement moving forward. I just don't see those as the confident solution or options for the retirees at this time. Folks who are listening to Money on Tap, and we are going to be talking about pouring into your financial foundation. It's a part one of a two-part series that we're going to be pulling together here on Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Quick sidebar here. Just want to thank you, our radio listener, as well as our podcast listener. If you are new to Money on Tap, we thank you for subscribing. We thank you for listening. We thank you for sharing us with your friends and your family, and having some crucial conversations around finance and elevating the conversation in the room. That's what we're all about, and we're having a good time doing it with you too. We can't wait to meet up with you down the road as we start doing some financial planning together as well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this show, Money on Tap, and Ben and I have been financial planners for years and years, and our goal here with you is to bring you into the room, have the conversations that we have. We think these are critical conversations for you, but we understand this is a limited space, and what we'd love to do is to open the doors to you with us at Brayshaw Financial Group, so you could experience what it means to have three-dimensional planning in your life. Let's take a look at all sides of your situation, your scenario, and see how we can put together the best plan possible, taking into account your risk. How much can you have in the market? How much do we need to have set aside and doing different things for your life? That's what we do as planners, how we engage with you, and we welcome you to do that with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, if you have $250,000 that are investable assets today, our planning is free to you. We want you to have the playbook to have a successful experience in retirement. Give us a call, 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Ben and I welcome you to Brayshaw Financial for complete wealth management.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about pouring into your financial foundation. And it's going to be a great show. No matter where you're at in your financial planning, you're going to want to just continue to stick around, sit tight. There's going to be some familiar concepts, some ways of introducing what we're talking about that you've just never heard of before. And I can't wait to dive into it with you, Ben.
I've used this illustration for a very, very long time. And I talk to people about, when they're building their financial foundation, the entire concept really it echoes very well with building a home. People, they build, a cement foundation, and it's, you might have a slab, you might be building with a crawl space, you might have a full basement where you put that, big screen TV and watch the football game, like whatever that story is for your foundation, there's a reason for that foundation, and we build our whole house on that foundation. As a matter of fact, when you insure your house, when you're insuring your house, you don't actually insure the foundation. A lot of people don't realize that necessarily, but we insure from the foundation up, because if you had a fire, God forbid, or a flood or something like that, they clean off the property and they spray down the walls of the foundation and they build off the foundation up. And we use that illustration a lot for people when it comes to their portfolios. We talk about having foundational elements. Social Security, we just talked about Money in the News a minute ago. That's a foundational element on some level for you, or a pension at work is a foundational element. Various investments can be foundational elements too in retirement, and that's annuities or bonds or things that have some sort of structure or security that you have to yourself. And then as you kind of get to your first floor house, you start building with 2x4s or 2x6s and insulation and sheetrock, which you feel secure about. I mean, a lot of people feel really good about their, like I bang on that wall and it feels solid. Like I'm pretty sure that I'm good. And despite some unforeseen tragedy, you probably are, right? I mean, I think that's the piece of it. And then as you get to your roof, we protect that entire investment with shingles that last for, 15, 20 years. And, you replace your shingles, you keep doing that because it sees the most, adverse conditions from up above, the rain and the wind and all of that stuff. So, and, your portfolio really works a lot like that. You have foundational elements and then you have that kind of first floor investment, which is maybe your stocks or maybe your more aggressive bonds or, whatever you're taking risk on. And then I talk to people about the shingles being something like an alternative investment. Like if you wanted to be involved in real estate and, there's a cycle to that space, maybe you're renting out a piece of property that you have, or you're buying a traded real estate investment trust. And those things cycle, they last 10, 15, 20 years. And, you kind of go through that process of continuing to create diversification and exposure. But I think everyone's risk tolerance is what defines how big a structure foundationally you want. And, if you're somebody who takes high risk, maybe you're just a person who has a cement pad that you build your house on and you're like, I've got enough money and I'm good and I feel secure that way. And if the house blows down, I'm prepared for that, And then there's other people, and my brother who builds these ICF homes, they're cement homes, all floors up from the basement down. And, it's all cement. And then they use, massive, timber frame structures and beams and stuff. And they're significantly stronger. And the roof is just, designed to last for as long as it possibly can. I mean, it's just designed to be hurricane almost proof. And some people want that in their financial foundation. And I think you don't really know what you're comfortable with until you sit down with somebody and you really start sketching out your own house. And that's really what that relationship is with a financial planner is you're pouring your financial foundation. As we talk about this part one, I think it's good to have that in the forefront of your mind as we talk through these first pieces in building your foundation.
Yeah, I think what it all has to do with each of these kind of levels and elements is, and you mentioned the word, it's risk, right? So, there are risks that we take on and we accept as part of, trying to establish wealth. But there are certain things that, really you don't want to have any risk involved in. And that's the foundation. And I think we're going to go through some points here that will help anybody listening kind of go through a self-review and say, hey, listen, if I have each of these elements addressed, I can feel fairly certain that my foundation is strong.
Well, when you say risk, it's funny when we meet with people and, they've been working their whole life to build their wealth and they're trying to transition into that distribution phase, that thing called retirement. And, as they're going through that, and I'm sure a ton of our listeners this is going to resonate with them, you're less concerned and probably not even concerned about how much you make every year, just that you get your income through the door every year. Like it's no longer about taking risk. It's more about how do I accomplish my financial needs moving forward in a way that I feel secure in accomplishing that. And that's what we do. And I think that's what people don't understand is it's not about meeting the stockbroker who's going to, trade stocks and tell you about the greatest little new investment out there that you've got to do.
I love the analogy here. And actually, as you're talking about this, I'm bringing up personal experiences, conversations, and I'm realizing there's some niche to what we're talking about here. And in most of people's experience when they're out there buying a house, right, or buying real estate, usually they're not out there just for right out of the gate buying a new home, right? They're usually buying something else that's been around for a while. And as part of that process, you're going to have an inspection. You're going to go through and find out all the problems with this house, but you're going to kind of turn it around and make it your own. But that foundation is one of those things that you're going to make darn sure is okay. And you're not going to have to try to fix that, or you're going to know exactly what that is kind of fixing it. So that's a little bit like, there's other planning agencies out there that kind of use just a brick and mortar, and it's a typical kind of a house that you're going to get into, and you make it work, right? It's your starter home. But what we're really talking about here is a couple steps past that. Working with a custom home builder. You've got 5, 10, 50 acres or something like that, and you're building your house, right? You're designing this thing, which is much different than working with your David Weekley or your D.R. Hortons. How often are you going to go jump into a new home construction with one of the builders and sit down and talk about the foundation and the elements of the foundation? No, most of the time people want to talk about, it's an open floor plan, right? It's a great room design. I've got, such and such beams and, the finish touches and the tile, whatever those surfaces are. That's what people really want to focus on. But none of that gets to happen unless you really do a quality job in the elements that we're going to be talking about. And again, these are the elements that they need to exist for every single home or structure. But it's the way that you introduce them to your design around you and your and your retirement that's going to be maybe a little different than you've had an experience in the past.
Yeah, I think the foundation is what, allows you to have all the things that are, the curb appeal items, right? How good does it look from the street? Well, all of that is, financially speaking, is really critically determined by how strong of a foundation you have to build off of. And one of the first things that it's good for everyone to establish when you're thinking about a financial foundation is to make sure you have an emergency fund set up. And a lot of people have kind of different definitions around that, but kind of a rule of thumb that we like to use is you want to have at least 6 months worth of living expenses available to you in a liquid state for an emergency should it arise. And that's something that is just really important to help people kind of put their minds at ease about taking steps into the other items that are part of a retirement strategy and just investing in general. But you want to make sure that, whatever the critical expenses are, the mortgage, the car payment, the utilities, food, clothing, whatever those things are for you, that you have available about 6 months worth of those costs.
Yeah, I think when you talk about curb appeal, I think that's hilarious because, we always say people talk, and it's like people talk about stocks like they went to the racetrack. Oh, I bought this stock and this is how much I made. And that's the curb appeal piece, right? They don't talk about, hey, I bought this really great CD at the bank. They might talk about it a little bit, but in reality, that's not the exciting part of anyone's financial picture. So that's not at the dinner. That's not at the dinner event, right? So curb appeal is really a facade, and I think when it comes to people and building an emergency fund, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. It's not the curb appeal piece, right? And there are ways to build curb appeal to emergency funds because as you're building an emergency fund and you don't stop building an emergency fund, that emergency fund becomes a savings account and it becomes a goal-oriented, exciting way to send your family on a vacation or to go on that trip, because we talk about buckets all the time, and we talk about as those buckets start to overflow with the funds that you're doing, then on top of that becomes excess money, and that should roll over to another bucket. And so I really tell people that the emergency funds are really your ability to challenge yourself to build the emergency fund to a point where it overflows the bucket that you've defined, and then that money becomes the excess cash that you get to have fun with, and that we start building other dreams around that stuff. So it actually becomes, and when people go to the out to coffee with their friends, and they say, yeah, well, we built this emergency fund and we continue to add to it every month, and then it gets invested when it goes to a certain point, and then that invested money becomes an asset that we get to go travel on and we do this with, and we're going to see the grandkids with. And people don't realize that you can really turn some of these things into fun experiences.
Yeah, just another illustration came to me. You see those those pyramids of the champagne glasses in movies, right?
Yeah.
You pour it into the top glass, and as it overflows, it fills the glasses beneath, right?
Yeah.
But the glass can only hold so much, right? So everything that you pour into it beyond that amount is getting redirected and filling another bucket. And that could be your investment bucket. That can be a vacation fund. It can be discretional spending of really any kind. And as you work down through the different levels of pouring here, right, getting back to our word of the day, you're addressing all these other needs. But it all starts with that top glass being full.
Next up, workplace retirement strategy. So not everybody has one of these, just first of all, but it is very, very common if you're working in a company for there to be some kind of a employee benefit in place, call it a 401k or a simple IRA. There's just lots of different versions of the workplace retirement strategy, and it's not always left in the quote unquote investment bucket. Sometimes there's insurance programs available, like some term insurance for you or in the family, disability insurance. There's the accidental insurance, kind of typical, the name that most people know out there when I say that is Aflac. We've seen the commercials with the duck, and anyways, I'll move on. So that's the accidental insurance, and these are the programs that are there for you if you break your arm. They'll pay you some kind of money for you to just, I don't know, they'll just give you cash a lot of the times for just accidents that happen. And some of these are actually in case you actually are not able to work. They will supplement your income for a period of time if you pass their corridor. But anyways, there's a lot of programs that, especially in this day and age, that we've noticed there's been a lot of ramp up in the workplace environment to attract and keep talent. It's a real challenge out there, folks. If you're employers, you'll nod your head and say, "Oh yeah, we know." It's the transitory nation or nature of the workplace has had a bit of its drawbacks as well. And what we want to try to help people understand is that, let's take a look at what is available. Do you have like a 401k, a matching program available where you put in 2% and the employer is going to give you 2%? When you start to see these things show up or be offered, it's free money. And it's one of the first places that we'll tell people, go ahead and take advantage and get free money. And there's other programs inside of that as well, where there might be escalators involved. And we kind of talked about that a little earlier in the show, where you might have a retirement plan that offers you to participate, but then they're going to continue to increase your participation rate over time. And we don't necessarily think none of these things are a bad thing, but what we want to try to do is just make sure that we've got, we've kind of got a hand over here in the program to help steer and direct. Because a lot of the time we find people will not rebalance those accounts. They'll just use a target date fund. And one of the biggest mistakes we see with the target date fund is people will take a look and say, well, I want to retire in 2030. And so they'll choose a 2030 date target retirement fund. And it's just not set up the way that they think it's set up. It's not designed to actually get them to their goal. What it's designed around is risk and timeline, which is a very different way of addressing investing. And if people are wanting to ramp up their retirement savings and increase their retirement savings, it becomes more about the savings rate necessarily in a short period of time than it does about some of the investments that it might be under the hood there. Just a couple examples of using the workplace retirement plans and also wanting to manage those and participate. There's not a set it and forget it in this world.
I think this is one of the biggest black holes of pouring into your financial foundation that people don't really pay as much attention to as they need to, and they wish they could, but they feel inadequate, and they're not just kind of paralyzed by the inability to make a good decision, and they really need help because the 401k is a vital part of people's retirement, and it's becoming more and more so as we look at the question mark of what Social Security is going to pay in 10, 15, 20 years for Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever, millennials, you name it. And that's a real problem. And we have people come in and we say to them, we can't manage your 401k, not on a daily basis, but we can help you allocate this thing in a way that you're set up to at least be more powerful, to be more intentional, to have a better perspective. And we can review this annually because it's not like you're going to, a 401k, a retirement plan at work, it's like riding a bus from one place to another. You're not in a race car. You're not going to make agile turns. You're not going to make quick decisions. It's literally a bus, and so you have to travel like you would travel in a bus, and you're gonna drive pretty much the straight highways, and you're gonna go the easy routes. You're not going to go the back roads, but still, people buy these target date funds, which I think are atrocious. I think they're overpriced. I think it's mutual fund companies taking advantage of people. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in these things that it's got tons of lawsuits. Buyer beware. But it could be the right thing for you. I don't know. And that's a conversation you have to sit down. We just talked to somebody the other day, and they're looking at retiring, and they own a target date fund for 2020. What's 2023? Like the date already passed. So if you're going to retire, like when does the target date fund really the right one for you? I mean, should you even be in it post the retirement date? Like, why does it even exist? So there's lots of conversations, and being intentional is truly, truly the biggest focus, where if you get engaged with a financial planner, you can at least talk to them about how can I allocate this 401k to be what I need it to be.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about pouring into your financial foundation. If you're joining us via podcast or on the radio and would like to join us via podcast, we welcome you here to the show. Please take a minute to subscribe. Grab a couple episodes, download those, take them on a walk, take them on your hike, whatever you're doing over your breaks, vacations, and soccer games and events that you're out there doing. Have a listen, have another listen, and increase the temperature of the room, elevate your understanding. And we appreciate you welcoming us and inviting us into that space with you. And if you are subscribing, please send us at info@yourmoneyontap.com a message letting us know that you've subscribed. We've got something we'd like to send back to you. It's our thank you for subscribing on the podcast, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. Listen to Money on Tap.
If you're listening today and your questions are outside the box of estate planning or financial planning or any number of the pieces that we kind of traditionally talk about, don't forget that Brayshaw Financial offers auto, home, and business insurance. And we have an entire department that handles all of that for you. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 and be happy to take care of those needs for you. Or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about pouring into your financial foundation. It's part one of a two-part series here with us. So you'll definitely want to stick around for next week. And in the meantime, go grab a couple Money on Tap podcasts and download and listen and like. We appreciate the subscriptions. Also, if you missed that last offer, yes, if you are subscribing to Money on Tap, let us know. Send us a message at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We've got something we'd like to send you out as a thank you for subscribing to us and being here with us today. With that, I think it's time for Dan.
Yeah, there's a couple other elements to the workplace strategy that I think are important to note here. And for those of you in particular that have been contributing for a number of years, there's been some things that are fairly recent developments in terms of their kind of widely available as an option. And that's to take a good look at a Roth 401k option. That's definitely worth asking the question if it benefits people and potentially kind of turning the dial on how you allocate your funds towards the Roth option. And as well, HSAs is a new item out there that's becoming more and more widely available, which is a health savings account that allows you to set aside some money for health expenses. But in the meantime, if that doesn't end up being the case, it can be converted into additional retirement dollars down the road. So some new features out there. Be aware and make sure you include that in your retirement strategy.
The other piece of this is that the kind of the number 3 for us is life insurance. I think no one really wants to talk about life insurance, and I get that. Like it doesn't have that appeal that everyone's like, oh, this is the great life insurance policy I have. But when it comes to pouring your financial foundation, that's exactly what life insurance is. It is a big blanket over having not poured enough of a foundation. And it's not just for super young people. It's for people in their 40s and 50s and 60s even. I remember really a kind of a sad story of came from an advisor that we're friends with, and he was telling me about his brother-in-law who had a massive heart attack, I think at 55 or something like that.
He was young.
Yeah, he was a young guy and a good earner, had a good earning income. And I think he had it was like a $900,000 life insurance policy or something like that. And he had what we called ABRs on it, which is accelerated benefit riders. And what happens with ABRs is that they actually pay out a portion of the death benefit if you have a massive health event. And it's defined. Every company has their own health events. But this one had a heart attack and stroke program. And they literally wrote him a check. I think it was for $750,000.
That's right.
The insurance company. And, doing the math, and that was tax-free. $750,000. And I think what ended up happening, we were having this conversation about the fact that he wouldn't have been able to contribute to his 401k enough money and the return on those dollars that he had immediately, between now and the day he retired at 55. And he'd only paid in for a couple of years on the policy. And one of the biggest things about insurance, and it depends on how you're doing it, whether you have these kind of accelerated benefit riders I just mentioned, or if you just have a death event, because I had a client recently pass away who left his wife some life insurance, and she's utilizing those funds, just like the person did in the heart attack scenario, to allow themselves to be retired, to stay retired. She doesn't have to go back to work. We're going to use that life insurance to create new income to offset his Social Security, the loss of the Social Security income. And that's really the concept about pouring your financial foundation, because whether you're young or old, you have the need to recreate wealth upon tragedy, and whether it's if you just want to count on, hey, listen, I'm okay, I just want a death tragedy coverage, or if I want these, heart attack, stroke, terminal illness, cancer, you want these types of coverages as well. Like you can buy those inside your life insurance policy, and that's a whole other thing. And a lot of people don't know you can do that. So that's, if you haven't heard of that, that's probably a fairly more of a recent kind of development over the last, I would say, decade. But, for the person who's not attuned to what's going on in the insurance world, it's really about ensuring your ability to earn an income, and that's what it's all about.
Next up, we want to attack debt, especially when we see rates on the rise. I don't know if you've taken a look lately at some of the offers out there to, pick up more debt if you're in that looking to buy a house or fund a business or any of those things. It's expensive. Like the rates right now on debt, it's definitely moving backwards. And especially if you're just talking about lifestyle debt, like, we funded this project over here to do a remodel, or, we just, we really wanted to have an extra special Christmas or whatever the thing was that's right now in that pool of debt. Pulling together a strategy around that and attacking that debt, getting serious about it. I mean, I'm going to go on the Dave Ramsey. I love Dave Ramsey about this. Grateful for Dave Ramsey for doing what he's been doing and spreading this message of really knocking this stuff down, because it is such a hindrance to people really being able to get free. Get free. I mean, that's, if there's some parts of this that we're talking about in the foundation, that we're building this dream in this house, it's so critical to be able to just cut the stuff, cut the junk that's going to keep you from being able to ultimately build what it is that you want and you desire. And that is one of those weird things out there that just kind of, it just eats away at your soul. And if you're in it, you know what we're talking about. You know what we mean when we say eats away at your soul. It just consumes your ability to take action in other areas of your life and be a successful investor.
That's a great point.
And the debt snowball is one of the ways that you can do that. There's other ways we discuss as well, but that's just one of the ways.
You know, I was thinking about, there's a lot of ways to attack debt, and it doesn't mean that you're just going to pay it down as fast as you can. Some people will take emergency funds and do, all sorts of things and so forth. But what's interesting is we're kind of at this really weird point where, you can actually, you might have a mortgage that's at a 3% rate, 30 years fixed right now, and you might be able to pay down a little bit of your mortgage and you're trying to gear up for retirement. But the truth is you can actually make a higher interest rate, putting the money in a CD at the bank, and you might be ready to retire in 5 years. So we've talked to people about saying, okay, instead of paying that down as fast as you possibly can, why not invest those dollars into something guaranteed that's a higher rate of return than your mortgage? And then on top of it, in 5 years, when you're ready to retire, liquidate that account and pay it off. You're going to actually have more money to pay off than that internal compounded rate, because they're both compounded. One's a higher rate. And, we've chatted with people about that, and that's been an interesting conversation because people don't think about those little things, because we can buy tradable CDs, and it doesn't have to be tons of money when you're saving each and every month.
Yeah, and up next here is take control of your plan, get a planner. And I think that this is becoming more and more important, relative to one of the articles that we mentioned in Money in the News, and that's this threat to Social Security, right? So hiring an advisor to take a look at the culmination of all the different assets you've set aside and to take a quick look at your overall financial picture and come up with ways to prepare you for the potential shortfall. Like Ben mentioned, whether that number that you kind of build into the plan is 70% of your expected Social Security or 50%. You want to be able to bridge that gap by other means to ensure the fact that you can get to that level of retirement income that you're hoping for.
I think one of the things, like when we're talking about the debt, Dan, that's where when you get a planner, you get those kind of ideas. I mean, that's kind of silly, stupid, simple kind of stuff. But and I use that example, but there's lots of ways we've helped people advance their financial, situation that they have never even considered. And getting a planner is really, like, we were talking with the people the other day, and they were like, yeah, we always want to get a planner, but we always want to meet with them. And it just never came to fruition. And that seems to be the case. Like, I was talking with one of our staff here, and I was explaining something, and I was like, people are so well intended. They want to meet, and it's a priority to them in their minds, but the time commitment is just complicated. Life is complicated. And so getting a planner is really not just a decision to say, yes, I'm going to do it, but it's yes, I'm going to call Brayshaw Financial today. Like, I'm going to make that appointment. Like, those are what people need to do, whether it's us or somebody else, but being specific about it. I mean, sit down with somebody. It doesn't cost anything to sit down with us and have a cup of coffee and figure out, hey, does this work for me? I mean, we're tremendously busy. I mean, it just is what it is. But call, schedule. Someone will find time. It's just like a doctor's office. Eventually you'll get in, and that's the way it works.
I'm just going to go back to the last show, some of the statistics around working with a planner or an advisor. On average, it's about a 23% difference or an increase from somebody that isn't working with a planner to somebody that is, in these areas, which are the stability of your current housing situation, your ability to manage your level of debt, your ability to afford health care, the stability of your employment situation or your career, your ability to achieve long-term financial security, your ability to plan for retirement, your ability to pay for unplanned financial emergencies, and there's just overall certainty. On average, a 23% increase by doing that. And having the right partner is really what I think that boils down to. And if that's not Ben, Dan, and myself, then guess what? There's good people out here in this industry willing to help you out. We love the opportunity to do that with you, and we love seeing the results that happen when we go through the process with you as well.
Next up we have invest intentionally, and we've talked about this a couple times. And, investing intentionally is really does require not only you to engage, but engage at a level you've never probably engaged at. And that means getting advice. That means working with somebody. So I'm not trying to take up our previous item, but getting a planner. But whether it's a stockbroker, a planner, an advisor, invest intentionally. Know what the overall picture looks like. I mean, just a little bit of guidance will at least, kind of hone you in to which direction, whether you're doing a Roth IRA at the workplace or you're doing a traditional 401k, whatever the scenario is, there's always some advice that will help bring you into a better focus of what you're trying to do. And that's investing intentionally.
I mean, it's like anything else in working with a professional, right? We do this each and every day. These are the conversations we have. We understand people's intentions and we help them achieve those things versus doing it yourself. You're not going to be aware necessarily of all the pitfalls and mistakes and things that, we've seen. We've just done the work over and over and over again on behalf of hundreds of people. So we know what things to look for that are commonly out there, but we help you bring that notion of intention to what you're doing. I kind of opened in the show talking about people come to us often with a basket of assets, but no real clear picture, whether that's enough or they're in a great position or they need any kind of adjustment in there whatsoever. And that's what we can do. At the very least, we can help you bring a little bit of order to your financial life.
Most common examples I see of that when we're talking about the investments is in that 401k plan where you've got, your large cap, your mid cap, your debt or your bond funds, and you've got all these different things you can invest in. And I see, 5, 6, 7 investments that have been selected to kind of get us diversified. And then they'll go ahead and pick the 2030, 2045 target date fund. And, I'll ask, well, why? Why choose that if you've selected all these other investments over here? What is that doing for you? And a lot of the time it's like, well, I'm just kind of trying to get it all, right? I'm trying to get as much of it as I can, and it's my fallback plan. If I've done this incorrectly or I haven't quite done it the way I should, maybe that's going to work out over there. Anyways, it's understandable why people are doing what they do. Let's bring the ideas to the table and understand it, and that helps us to go ahead and say, well, that idea works or doesn't work. That investment works or doesn't work, and here's why. It's it's an awesome exercise, you guys. It's empowering, and it's just going to light the fire underneath you to be a better investor.
You're right on, Seth. And I think as people listen to this show, and we were remarking at how many people either listen to our show or download it. It's the numbers are just growing, and it's really neat to see. And I'm happy it's really helping people because I think for some people we are already your financial planner. Like we're already providing that daily advice as you're trying to become a more, competent, capable, and intentional investor. And I hope that this, show continues. I'm excited about part 2 and pouring out your financial foundation because that distribution phase is coming for so many people. And if you're not sitting there, in it right now today, there's people who are doing it, maybe could be doing it better. There are people who are getting ready to do it and trying to figure out how to get there. But between that accumulation phase and that distribution phase, there is a lot of things you can do to amplify yourself.
Folks, I think you've gotten a great foundation here today. You've gotten some really good stuff. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of other shows that we've kind of poured into ourselves and around some of these concepts that we're talking about today. If you are wondering, what is my next step right now? I'm on this journey. I want to be a successful investor. I want to retire successfully. If those are things that are coming up for you, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a part of you that we want to connect with and congratulate you because you're here today and you're willing to do what it takes to become that successful investor, to understand what you need to do next or fit that next piece into your plan, take that next step and do it in a way that you're not guessing around it. You're really fully empowered. And embodying that person that you're becoming. It's awesome. We love the opportunity to be here with you. We welcome you aboard. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And if you're listening to us on the podcast today, thank you for subscribing. If you are subscribing, send us a message at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'd like to thank you personally. And we've got something special for you. And we'll look forward to connecting. Folks, be a successful investor and make it a great week. We'll see you soon.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.